And we're live. Welcome to the Challenge Insiders, episode one, recap one for the All Stars episode one as well. And we've got a good one off here. I've got my co host Mike Lewis and Chantel. I'm Chris. I'm going to go over to Chantel. Chantel, what did you think of this first episode of hopefully the first season of All Stars?
I loved it. I mean, it just gave me everything that I've been missing from the regular challenge. I don't know if it's just because there's familiarity with these people or the vibe that they brought to the show is what I fell in love with the show with. So I just love being taken back down memory lane, seeing all the clips of the old school players like in action in their prime. I'm loving it so far. So I can't wait to see the next episode, and I hope this is a series that continues moving forward.
I personally really enjoyed it. I can't complain. I think that especially from, hardcore fans who grew up like watching these people, I think if you don't get a little bit of goosebumps seeing, Katie, Alton, and Mark Long getting off that bus in the opening intro, I mean, gosh. Another thing that was interesting to me is that, when they were talking about when they were last seen, Katie was mentioning Cutthroat as if it was like yesterday, and that was, I believe, 10 years ago. So that was cool, I thought, because typically, and I noticed this on the main seasons, when we get like a big return, it doesn't feel like they mention like how long they were gone for or like when they were last seen. So I thought it was really cool that they were talking about when they were last there and their last show, previous history of the show. I think that acknowledging the show's history is really important. And I like that they did that.
I agree. Like, the challenge is in a unique scenario where it's got this mythology that they can sort of tap back into from previous seasons. And they did this even when they go into the house, they've got the shields there from previous seasons. And the one thing I didn't know if it was like all of the previous seasons that these guys specifically played in, or if it was all of the seasons that has ever been on the show. I didn't see if that was, I don't know if they had enough space on that wall to get all the seasons in there, but I agree. It is really, really cool to see the history of some of these guys and what they've done before, and especially for me as a neutral coming into, or a new fan coming into this season. I had no point of reference. I can imagine as being a really big Survivor fan when they did the All Winners season this year, and they had people coming back from like 20 years ago. That gave me the goosebumps as well. So I can imagine for people like yourself and Chantel who've watched it since way back, it must be even at a next level. And for me, it's really exciting because I get to watch firstly 2 seasons of the challenge at the same time. We're in a twilight zone or a unicorn zone at the moment when it comes to the challenge. And for everybody that's challenge lovers out there, we get to see it twice a week now, which is amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And do you know what? Like, I don't know if it's just because Double Agents has been going on for like 5 months. Like, this one, they just revitalized me. I'm just like, yes, give me some more challenge content. Like, I want to see these players. I wasn't feeling like, oh, okay, the challenge is on again. Like, I was definitely rejuvenated, and I'm ready to watch this whole season. So I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I wonder what that. Yeah, I wonder what, that's an interesting point. I wonder what this is going to do now for potentially the like ratings and perception of Double Agents now having a kind of, I don't want to say rival show because it's ultimately the same entity, but in essence, it's almost like they're competing with themselves because now there's going to be 2 shows on at once, and I'm interested to see now, do people kind of jump ship here and only watch OGs mostly or All-Stars mostly, or how is that going to work? I wonder if that's a little bit of a friendly fire here, maybe a little bit. But
I think true fans are going to watch both no matter what. But I think that they might be able to start getting some of the older or like the veteran challenge fans to come back out. I think that the biggest hindrance is that, okay, we're gonna be gone for like a couple of months. I have a family, like I don't want to be leaving for that long. And so I think with the shorter format, I think it allows for these people to go in and get some money. Like, they want a paycheck too. And so I think it gives this big opportunity, and there's still hundreds of people that I'm sure would be willing to go in and play in the new season. So I think that it's going to work, and I think that they're still going to be surprised by how many people are going to be watching this season.
I think that it's an absolute masterstroke by the producers of the challenge to do this. And obviously, they've got Mark Long to thank for having the great connections that he does to go back to some of these old school players and to bring them back. Because I agree with Chantal. I think that you're going to have people that haven't watched the show for a very long time come in. I know that it's very controversial having different shows feed into the challenge at the moment. And there's a lot of debate out on if that's a good thing or not, but it has brought new fans. Like, I'm an example of one of those new fans that have come into the challenge world because of Big Brother and Survivor players now playing in the challenge. And I get it's got its positives and its negatives, but at the moment they're getting these different streams of fans that are coming. It might be fans from way back 18 years ago when Yes played, or it might be fans like myself that watch other shows that now also love the challenge because it is a great show, it is a great concept. And I feel like Chantal said, because of the fact that if you're a true fan, there's 2 episodes a week. I think that we can watch the 2, and it's not on the same platform. You've got Paramount Plus and you've got MTV going there. So overall, for me, it's a really positive. I did want to move into the actual episode and sort of touch base on when these guys come in on the buses. We hear TJ sort of talking about that they're bringing back the best of the best, right? So if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And it's obviously debatable because some of these players are some of the best, but, we don't have a Johnny Bananas there. We don't have a CT there. So there's a couple of players, I feel like, that isn't there to be the best of the best. But we've got some really, really big characters. And I think that Gemma sort of brings that up a little bit later on in the episode where she says, to be a legend, you don't necessarily have to win the challenge, but you need to be someone that's memorable and somebody that sticks in the minds of the fans. And is that sort of how you guys are seeing this play out as well with some of these players coming back?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they have to win to be, the best of the challenge. Somebody, I can't remember who mentioned it, but they said that it was like back in the day, it was summer camp for adults. It might have even been Jemmy because she seemed to be narrating most of this episode. And that's kind of what I kind of fell in love with. It was like, okay, got to do these fun challenges and they got to hang out with people their own age and get to drink and party and win some money. And, that's kind of what the challenge was. And so it's just a completely different show now, which is fine. It's its own entity, but I like bringing this old blood back where it was more about the entertaining characters and how they were interacting in this show format, as opposed to these like super athletic beasts that are going to be like jumping from, these trucks to truck with explosions and whatnot. So I think that the type of legends from the past are definitely very different from what the legends that are being created right now are.
I definitely think that, with the whole theme premise of this show, it's very polarizing and subjective because, you had people when it was originally looking like the name was going to be OGs. Well, when they saw the cast come out, be like, well, this person's not an OG, but then, kind of compensate and make it all-star. And then you're like, wait, but is this person an all-star? So you kind of have to give a little bit, I'd say that I'm definitely, if I were to choose between the two, I'm kind of glad that they went with the all-star route instead of the OG route. Now, that being said, I agree that you don't necessarily have to be a winner of the show to be considered an all-star or a legend. Being memorable definitely plays a part in, I feel, your worth to the show and this cast. And I definitely feel like everybody on this cast brings their own unique kind of spin on the show. And I think that everybody has a place here. I think there's not one person on the cast where you can be like, well, they don't bring anything. So I definitely think that this cast is very diverse.
The biggest surprise for me, when we see these players walk out of the bus here and we get a little bit of an intro, like firstly, Katie talking about the fact that she was last on Cutthroat, and you see that flashback of her running and jumping from one platform to another platform and just absolutely having the worst tumble into the water. And I take my hat off to her because we look at more physical competitors that you would think is really athletic in today's challenges, and they don't even attempt to do those kind of things. So immediately, I don't know her from her previous seasons. I do know that Johnny Fairplay likes to talk about her quite a lot on his podcast. But at the end of the day, she looks like she's got a lot of heart, and she says that I used to be known for a lot of drama. I used to be known for getting into fights and things like that. But I'm mature now. I've calmed down. I've got kids. I've got a husband. How long do we think that's going to last?
I don't think it's going to last because, I don't know if they talked about it on the show or if I was just thinking about it, but even when I go and hang out with like my family and I haven't seen them in a long time, I kind of revert back to when I was living at home and I'm acting like a kid. So, I can imagine that these people, like, they had their 20s with them and they had all this drama, all these fights, all this booze. And it's just like you're going to revert back to who you were when you were hanging around these people. You might have, maybe you'll have some second thoughts about certain things, but instinctually, I think that they'll fall back into their regular habits, especially Katie.
I would compare Katie to kind of like a volcano, they're kind of just, they're stationed, they're fine, but you don't know like when it's kind of going to erupt. I don't know. I think that she's going to try to be on her best behavior, to kind of maybe set an example for, cause she got a family now and whatnot, but some people just have that switch, and they just can't, when they get triggered, like they just, they're going to say how they feel. And I definitely feel like, putting these people back into an environment, it's almost like you kind of lose a sense of time and memory because everything just gets brought back once I feel like there's like a magic potion in the challenge house. You typically see challengers say stuff like that in interviews and other places as well. There's just something about the challenge house that just like works its magic on you, and then you just get triggered at certain things that you might not be triggered at if it's like in your real life, and people just clash, and it's just bound to happen. I just think that Katie's someone that I think that falls under that category as someone that we're gonna see how it plays out this season, and we see from the trailer, but I'm interested to see.
Well, and I don't think that they would include any sort of clips like that if we're going to not see later down the road, maybe her not keeping her cool. So I think they're setting us up to get the payoff of the Katie blow up.
No, fair point. Now, we do see a little bit more here of the players getting out of the bus, and we get Mark Long talking about the fact that if it's 1990 or 2021, it doesn't matter. And he does look kind of like he's been in a time machine or one of those chambers that keep you young for years and years, because physically he looks even more fit than what he did when he first did the challenge back in the day. So at least from a physicality standpoint, he looks really good. And the same for Alton. He talks about the fact that, he's known as being a badass in the challenge world. He's been in 3 finals. He's won one of those finals. He's only done 4 seasons, so it's a pretty impressive record. But then we get who I think is the MVP of this episode, Gisela, getting out of the bus, and she has a little bit of a slip, which maybe would make you think that she's not going to be that great in the season. But throughout this whole episode, she impressed me the most out of everyone. And Chantel, I'm going to go to you first because she was your last pick.
Yeah.
What did you get on your draft?
I know. I was like, definitely her episode arc was amazing. And that's kind of what I love about these older competitors coming back, is that like we're kind of, all of them are kind of like, oh, I don't know if they're going to do a good job. Oh, they're looking a little bit rough. Like we're kind of like judging them on their physicality. And then to see, we're going to probably talk about it a lot later, but like, we could see that she's really wants it, and she's like has the heart, and she's gonna go for it. And so the polar opposites of like how we were thinking about her when she's kind of stumbling out of this bus, and then to her basically being the MVP of the episode. I love seeing that journey, and I hope that means that people are gonna kind of stay away from her and maybe allow her to get to the end, because like I would like to see someone like her get to the final.
Yeah, you could point out a couple things actually in regards to Gisela being the MVP of this episode, because I just want to point out she was one of 2 of the females to go and retrieve those blocks from the water. Her and Jemmy were the only 2 females to. Not only that, but she pretty much just served from a confessional standpoint and entertainment standpoint. And I'm sure we'll get into it later in this, but I just like, I'm usually very much so someone who stands up for what's nice and what's good, and I love Ace as a guy. I think he's very pure, maybe too pure for this show. But I'm guilty here because I can't help but say that I laughed a little bit when Gisela kind of opted to not. But more so because of how she delivered it and her reasoning, because it's like, more or less in a way, you could look at her reasoning as kind of like a throwaway confessional that was pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things from 15 years ago. And I want to hear your guys' perspectives, but I think it was pretty funny her just being like, no, but I want to know if you guys think it would have been funnier if she flat out just came out and said, well, yeah, you kind of said I was dead weight on a show we did like 15 years ago, so I'm not going to save you. What do you guys, do you think it was funny?
That she didn't say anything, just a nice no, and he gets to think about what he did. And like I'm sure he knows that there's no way that she was going to.
Chantal, he forgot. Men forget these things. They just, she'll hold on to it. He probably forgot about it.
Especially Ace. I don't think that Ace is the type to go and rewatch too much. So
this is why we get in trouble. This is why we get in trouble in relationships, Chantal. Men forget the little things that they've done like 10 years ago. They wouldn't remember it, but but it was great to see. So what were you saying, Chantal?
I said, hopefully he'll remember her tone this time.
Yeah. Well, listen, if Ace ever does come back, I'm sure he'll know. And throughout this whole episode, we'll go into it. I felt like I agree with Mike. Ace comes across as a really good, genuine guy. Probably too good for this show. Like and it's one of the questions I was going to ask you guys is kind of, was Ace always this kind of personality? Because to me, it kind of feels like he doesn't fit in that well with the rest of the group. And he does come across as a little bit socially awkward. And it might be because he's a bit of an introvert from what I can pick up. And he looked like a fish out of water in this cast to me.
Yeah, and I posed this question too. I think I asked someone else was this kind of the, because I'll be honest, I mean, if I'm being completely transparent, I just know Ace as the third guy from the Real World Paris Real World season. And this is no way shading or knocking him, but like, you look at CT and Adam and being like the two polarizing figures, and obviously their big fight, they're going to garner most of the attention and be more well-known from that Real World season. So I feel like Ace, just by nature, maybe is less talked about, less known. And maybe, I don't know, I think from what I know through the grapevine, this has kind of always been like who Ace is. And I do agree with you. He definitely seemed a little bit, I don't want to say out of place because I definitely think that they need pure people on this show to kind of balance out the conniving ones. But he definitely handled the situation. And I don't know if it's because of being out of the game too long or what, but his terminology is he was calling them all monsters. And it was like, I was like, buddy, have you been on the show before?
Yeah, Darrell had a very strong response to that and said, this is the game. It's the name of the game. And I mean, Darrell is someone that has just played another challenge season and is fully in game mode. I think it's harder for someone like Ace, who hasn't been on the show for that many years. And back in the day, like Jimmy said, it was more of summer camp. You went there with a bunch of your friends. You got some free money. You got a free TV. The stakes weren't as high as it is currently. And maybe some of these OGs or players from way back in the day, they're not as prepared for how cutthroat this game is going to be. And it could be a very, very interesting season as it continues to get more and more intense, because this first episode to me seemed pretty straightforward and it seemed like everybody was pretty much in unison in regards to what needed to happen. But we know that's not going to be the case moving forward, and it's going to get harder and harder for each of these guys.
Well, and one thing with Ace kind of being a little bit of a fish out of water here, it kind of reminds me of how so many people were coming for Richard Hatch with his having strategy and having an alliance, and like, no, that's not the morally sound way to play this game. And so people are, I don't know, like picking names out of a hat, whatever. Like they were trying to be very fair about how they were going to be playing season 1 of Survivor. And Richard Hatch changed that. He made alliances be a thing. He, changed the name of the game here. And so I think that Ace might still be in that, 15, 20 years mentality where alliances and stuff like that are not the right way to play these games. And so I think that he hasn't moved along with the times to see that strategy and alliance and even kind of group think and getting your targets out, like that is how the game is played now. And I don't think that he's really done his homework or caught up to speed.
Now, we do move into everybody meeting TJ, and as soon as you see TJ being the host of the season, you should know that this is real. It's not going to be a knockoff challenge or a spin-off almost challenge. I feel like it's almost canon at this stage with having TJ in the actual season. Now, TJ does look quite snugly dressed. I feel like he might not be, used to actually having warmer seasons anymore, because the last 2 seasons that we've had of the actual challenge have been in very cold climates. So really enjoying that it's actually not a winter type of season, and there's a little bit better scenery for us there in the backdrop. It definitely helps. And TJ says to the guys that, you're the best of the best. You're taking each other on. To be the best, you got to beat the best. And he also says that past relationships may come back to haunt you, because you will sometimes, this is an individual game, but you will sometimes be playing with others. Sometimes there'll be more of you playing together. Sometimes there'll be less of you playing together. So it does sound like the twist of the season and how it will work is that we'll either have duos at some stages and we'll have teams at some stages. Maybe we'll have trios. So quite an interesting concept. We don't hear anything about the golden skulls or the red skulls or whatever they call it these days. Really happy about that, because I'm not a fan, and I think that the players have already worked out how to manipulate that twist in any case. How do we feel about how things are going to be playing out this season, and will it keep it fresh?
I mean, I definitely think it's going to keep it fresh, because if it's a team challenge, then maybe somebody who's the weakest link is going to be the one that, goes in and has to defend themselves in the, I don't know, are they calling it other than elimination? Do they have a name for it?
The arena,
I think it's
the arena.
Okay, yeah.
So go down to the arena. But then if it's like duo challenge, like maybe like they're going to want to get out the stronger person. So I think that strategy will be allowed to change up with who is going to go down into the arena, because it's not one set format. So they're going to be kept on their toes, and I think that it will offer a lot of drama and changing in strategy.
This is basically kind of like a free agents type of format, more or less, in a way.
One of my favorite seasons, by the way. Love free agents.
Well, I mean, that not to get off topic, but that 3-season stretch, I feel like from Rivals 2 through X's 2 is probably my favorite 3 stretch of seasons. But yeah, no, I definitely like kind of how this went. I feel like my favorite type of criteria of like how someone gets thrown into elimination, I've always liked when it's last place finish automatically goes into elimination, and then the house votes who their opponent is. That's usually been my favorite. So I'm interested to see here how if it's an individual daily challenge, would that then mean that whoever finishes last would then just go straight to elimination, I would assume, or the winner, which I don't know. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, because say if it's an individual daily challenge and then we get a guy who wins, would he then get the power to throw someone in, and then the house would, or that person that gets thrown in would choose his opponent? I don't know how that's going to. I
feel like it's going to be last place. Like, I mean, if it's going to go with how this first challenge went, which was basically you have the 2 captains, the losing 2 captains go down, but we don't know this because obviously it's going to switch up. I'm similar to you. I'm hoping that it's last place, because I like it when it's, whoever didn't do well on the challenge on the day, that's fair. They go down to elimination, and then I'm hoping that it's a house vote and whoever won is safe. So you can't put that person in there, but it remains a house vote for who the person is that actually goes in there. Because I feel like if it's one person who wins the challenge on the day and they get the sole vote to put someone on against the one that's in the bottom, it's too much power for that person to have, in my opinion.
Then win.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do also find out in this stage here that it's a 500K prize, so it's no small change when it comes to this season. And Darrell says that this is no reunion. People will kill each other for that. And Ace has got that really good line where he says, people used to do crazy things to each other just for a scooter, and now we've got $500,000 on the line. And while they're moving into the house, we've got that scene with Ace again there with I believe it was Kendall and with Beth, I think, in the room where they were talking, and Ace says that that it's going to be pretty, that people do very, very bad things for money, and that when money's involved, you see the worst in people come out. So again, they're kind of like preempting what is going to happen throughout this episode, and they're doing a lot of building here. We get Gemma talking about the fact that she might not be a legend in regards to the fact that she's won a lot of games, but she's a social threat, and that she's come back to win this one. She wouldn't come back out of retirement if it wasn't for the fact that she wants to win this season. So she's taking it very seriously. Probably the most interesting part for me in this whole episode is the dynamics that we see here between a few players. So we've got Cyrus and we've got Laterian talking a lot to each other. So you can clearly see that they're very good friends who are going to stand with each other throughout this season. And you've also got Beth and Cyrus talking a lot. So you can see that there is a bit of a relationship there as well. And they look at her quote from the Gauntlet 3 and what she said. And she says that she's got to live up to it. So we're already seeing that there's potential alliances here in the house with people that are friends. And I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that we're seeing these things so early in the game at this stage. But we know that Beth is connected to Cyrus. She's hoping she's connected to Nehemiah. And I'm sure we're going to go into this. Nehemiah doesn't look like he wants to be that connected to her this season.
Well, isn't she cuddling with him? Isn't that her in the bed cuddling with Nehemiah in the clip?
No, it's Jimmy. I think it's Jimmy.
I wasn't sure. I just saw blonde.
The flashback showed Beth and Nehemiah.
The flashback, yes.
Yeah.
I know I watched the duel recently, so I remember they're in my tenderoni. I definitely remember Beth. I mean, I back in the day, I remember I was being annoyed by Beth, but when I rewatched the duel, I was like, man, you girls are shitty. So hopefully people will warm up to her a little bit. Because I just want to see her longer. I want to see her maybe do a little bit better. And I can't remember which season, if it was Gauntlet 3, but a lot of those players were on Gauntlet 3. So Ace was on there, I think. Wasn't Katie there as well? Like, I feel like a lot of the people that Cyrus, even
is the reason that Ace did the Gauntlet 3 because Beth was on there?
No, it was the Real World Paris, was because he saw her season.
I thought he just followed her onto the challenge as well. So maybe he went onto Real World Paris and then followed her onto the challenge as well.
Maybe.
No, but I agree with you. I think I'm a little bit worried for Beth here early on in the season because I feel like she's getting a lot of screen time immediately, and seeing that Nehemiah isn't that attached to her at this stage, and he's trying to create distance between himself and her. And he says that, listen, the only thing I get remembered for in the challenge world is the fact that I hooked up with Beth, basically. And he looks at that as a negative thing. I don't think it's very positive for her because Nehemiah, throughout this episode, I was impressed by the fact that he looks like he's worked on his social game. I never saw his previous seasons. So it made me feel a bit more comfortable about the fact that I've got him quite high in my own draft. But I feel like he socially seemed quite into it, and he was having a lot of good strategic conversations with different people in the season early on here. So I don't know if that's a good thing for Beth, since he's trying to distance himself from her a bit here.
It's a good thing that he clearly did some work on his social game, or looked at, maybe he went and rewatched some of his past performances and such, because pretty much his thing on most of his seasons, he would always take a swing for the kings of the house. He would always go bold and kind of carry like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Like he's very prideful, and I think like he always tried to kind of like, I mean, he was good friends with Wes, obviously, because they were from the same Real World season. But when Wes wasn't on shows with him to kind of be like his seeing eye dog, and he was kind of on his own, he didn't really know how to go about things. So his only way was just, I'm gonna go for the big dogs, and we saw it a couple times on most of his seasons with who he called out and whatnot. But I definitely think, and you could see through this first episode, that he's definitely going in with a much different strategy. And I think that if he wants to go far, which I think that he potentially can. I mean, he looks like he's in much better shape than he was since even his last time we saw him. So, couple that with new social game potentially, and we could be seeing Nehemiah as a pretty big threat in this game.
And if you're noodling with Jemmy, Jemmy's she has her finger on the pulse with what's usually going on in the house, and she does have a lot of social capital. So I think that if they're kind of going to be strategizing together, I think that it's going to be very good for his game, because she'll be like, no, don't do that. No, like do that instead. I think that she might be able to have a little bit of a leash on him, and maybe they can maneuver the season together.
I was going to add, USA Today has got Nehemiah as their #1 ranked pick after the first episode, because they said that he did really well in the challenge. He was getting in on the social game. He looks physically the most fit, and they had Elton as second. So Elton, you've got Nehemiah, Elton, and then Yes as the top 3 on USA Today after that episode. So listen, I don't think that we've got challenge experts in USA Today sort of breaking down the episode, but it does make me feel very good about my pick, because Nehemiah was my second guy pick on the draft, and I'm just going to roll with it, and I'm just going to be happy with the fact that so far so good. But when you start this high, you can only go down, so not a good thing here, maybe for the long-term game. But what did you guys think about all the conversations here between Cyrus and Laterian? Because it does seem that they're seen here to work together and strategize well together. Mike, do you know if these two guys have been close for quite a long time?
You see, I don't really have like a huge recollection of Laterian. I mean, we talked about it on the cast or the draft that we did about how he had a stigma to him of being like popcorn muscles. That's pretty much my from what I've gathered about Laterian. But what I can say is I definitely feel like, and I noticed with a few guys, and maybe this is why Cyrus and Laterian were so heavily involved in this episode with having conversations, is because I felt like I saw a certain look in like some of the male cast members' eyes, like Big Easy, Nehemiah, Cyrus, Laterian, those 4 specifically, of kind of like zoned and locked in, because I feel like maybe to themselves they have something to prove, whereas like a Derek, Darrell, Alton, Mark are already building off of already established and decorated legacies, whereas these other guys that I mentioned before, maybe they kind of bowed out and didn't have so great of performances, or they have like sour taste in their mouth about how they went out on the last time they were on the show, and they don't want to be left off the cast again. So they're viewing this as kind of like a do or die, kind of like we got to have a good season type of deal,
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I can see them being like, hey, let's really work together to change our legacies here, to like make a different name and a different, history for us. And so I think that there is a little bit more of like a desperation to change their fate here, and they want to do that together. Or use each other to do it together. So yeah, I definitely think that they have something to prove, and they just really just don't want to go out first. I think that they just like that's just like that is not going to happen, and they're going to take in whoever they can down to not go out first. So yeah, I do definitely think that they're trying to prove something.
Listen, I feel for Big Easy, because again, you see that picture of him being on the ground, absolutely gassed out in the beginning of this episode. So I fully appreciate why he would want to win that season. So hopefully they've got like a flashback of him actually walking away with the money, opposed to him being on his back, gassed out. And that's probably going to follow him forever until he actually does win one of these seasons, let's be honest. Now, we do also see here towards the end Nehemiah telling Laterian, or LT like they call him over on the Challenge All-Star season. He says that, listen, this is an individual game. It's very different to what you guys are used to. We find out that a lot of these guys have never played individual before, and they've never been in eliminations or in the arena. So there's definitely going to be a bit of a learning curve here for the OGs, which follows them into this first challenge. The first challenge is called Deep Blue Dive, and we've got 2 teams of 11. And the 11 are randomly selected, so they don't get to do like a schoolyard pick to decide who's going to be in these teams. The big twist here is that they have to choose 2 people to be a captain, 1 guy and 1 girl to be a captain. And clearly the people who have been doing these challenges for a while and are more savvy, they're stepping very far back from the responsibility of having to be the captain. Like Anissa gives a great confessional saying, no chance. I'm probably well suited to be the captain because I've got more experience than a lot of these people, but I'm not going to put my hand up, not this early in the game. So a very interesting strategy here. But I did also notice that Kellyanne put her hand up because she said she would rather do it now than later, which I think is going to come into play later on in the season, because now she can say, I have put my hand up once, it's someone else's turn, and she was lucky enough not to be the person to go down in this specific round.
And I don't, well, I mean, I guess if she lost, like, she'd be going down, but I think it was a good strategy for her, because I think that people in the beginning stages are going to want her on their team. They're going to want to work with her. So I think that, right now would be the best time to, give it a go as the captain, because there's more people to choose from if you have to like put somebody into elimination. I don't think they knew at that time that the losing captain, if it was that gender's day, they would be going down. So I think that was beforehand. And so she might have second guessed that if she knew that before.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to how double agents is too, where like, certain team gets thrown in, you're not exactly sure whether or not it's going to be a guy or a girl day. I don't know. I think that Kellyanne had somewhat of a cushion regardless, though, because, she's one of the stronger females. So odds are, had it be her going in, she probably would have gotten the matchup that she wanted. I think they would have granted her that had it been female day and she'd been going down. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the guys that put their hand up here is Tech and also Laterian. They become the two captains. And Tech has got some great lines throughout this whole episode. Firstly, he's got great moves. I've got to say that, I'm very impressed by the dance moves he pulls off at the end when they do win. But he does end up putting his hand up, and he's got the comments about this being like the old age home, and, it's recess at the old age home because everybody is struggling in the water here. And there's a few people here that, probably didn't do their legacies any justice going into the water. The funniest scene for me, by the way, was Arissa hardly getting into the water, and then she ends up getting a cramp, and she looks like a baby deer coming out, and she can't keep her legs straight. Just funny scenes all around with some of these people absolutely flaming out.
Yeah, I thought it was like, I was like, come on, guys, you didn't do a little bit of water training, because like, if I'm gonna go on Survivor, I would be training in advance of like diving deep in like open water. Like, I'd be practicing untying things and unhooking things underwater. So the fact that everybody seemed to be doing a terrible job, like, it could be because the water was colder than they were anticipating, for sure, but I was kind of shocked that even some of the men that I was expecting to do a better job, that they didn't. But it was entertaining still. And then I think when more people weren't doing a good job, people weren't trying as hard. I think they were just like, we'll take the 5 minutes.
Yeah, I could definitely see how it would be, kind of amusing. But this was probably the part of the episode where I was like most nervous, when everybody kept kind of, bowing out a little bit, is because I'm like, oh no, like
you could see Mark as well. You could see Mark as sweat was coming off his forehead in the confessionals, just talking about everybody struggling, and he put these guys together. So for him, it's his baby. It's like being the dad that goes to look at their son playing the football match, but he's not doing well, and he feels embarrassed for the son or the daughter being there in the sports field. So it was really funny to see. But luckily, there were a few people that did okay as well. So
yeah, I was nervous to see, because I'm like, I don't know, like it was kind of getting tough to watch a little bit with nobody being able to kind of complete the challenge. And I was like, uh-oh. Like, but then it started to pick up. So then,
Yeah. Now the whole challenge, and I think we didn't properly explain what was happening on this challenge, is we had to go into the water, and we had to collect puzzle pieces, which was these blocks with numbers on it, and a math equation had to be completed on the sideline when they swim out. Now, the higher the number, the deeper they had to go and swim into it. So I think if they were strategic about this, they should have had the swimmers that aren't so good, and I'm sure they did, it probably just didn't get explained. The swimmers that aren't that great should have gone for the lower numbers, and then people who are actually great swimmers, they should go deeper to go get the higher numbers when they go in. But there is a few fails here as well. Like Kellyanne goes out, they get her to go look for the wrong number, she can't find it, she has to swim back out. You get Darrell going in there and getting the puzzle piece for the other team when he comes out. And I can't remember who said it. It was a really funny comment there, saying like, when you get older, you might not see as well, and that's why he got the wrong color coming out. And I love the self-deprecating humor that was being used here by some of the contestants, just to make light of this whole scenario. But the people who do definitely live up to their legacies and do end up doing really well is your Altons, your Derricks, you've got your Nehemiah. Yes, absolute standout star. I felt like, Yes and Gisela, those were the two people I didn't expect to do as well as they did. And we find out that Yes is a math champion, which is a hidden skill that he's got that's very relevant to this. So he's probably going to be a bit of a smart guy, but he looks athletically pretty fit. I feel like Yes might be in a better position than what we thought in most cases, unless he has to go up in a hall brawl or do something really physical against one of the beastly guys in this challenge. But overall, the people you thought were going to do well, like the standout guys, they did well. And then we had the two surprising people here being Gisela and Yes really picking it up. And I believe, Yes, that was your selection over in your team as well. So you must feel pretty good about the fact that you've got him in your team after this episode.
Well, I mean, at least I had something go right for me, right?
What do you mean? You mean getting Arissa isn't a good thing for you?
I do have to say, though, just to stand up for the senior edition of the challenge, right now, is that there's going to be a lot of people, even on double agents, that wouldn't have been able to complete that task. We saw with I can't remember exactly how the challenge went on double agents, where they had to swim out and there was the ice thing. Like, a lot of people were like Mishi had to get medically DQ'd. Like, there was still tons of people that weren't able to finish some of these challenges. So it looked like bad, when we're watching it. But I don't think that everybody on the newer season of the challenge and the younger people were going to be able to complete it either. So I think that they made it extra difficult just so we can have these moments of like, can these old people get it done? Like, I don't know. But I'm hoping it's because MTV wants to give them an arc to see like, oh my God, like they actually are able to dig deep and like really, really prove themselves in the challenge. So I'm saying that it's a strategic arc for these OGs.
Listen, this challenge absolutely created, like in my mind, Gisela is like one of my favorite characters so far because of this specific episode and because of this specific challenge. Because you look at her and you think to yourself, she's not going to necessarily be the best person for this challenge. In fact, even the flashbacks they did in the beginning of the episode was showing her fail in an elimination and TJ giving her a bit of stick for the fact that she didn't win that elimination. So you don't think she's going to be one of these surprising factors coming in here. But Darrell says, Gisela is someone that is very strong-willed and very strong-minded, which I feel like in the challenge, that's like 80% of the battle. You've got to force yourself to do the challenge. And some of these people, I feel like they just didn't push themselves that hard. Like Trishelle goes into it and she says that, hey, I thought we were going to be here drinking wine and relaxing and partying and that kind of vibe. So she was still on that vibe. She didn't think she was actually going to have to go out there and do this challenge. But I love the fact that the challenge is not taking it easy on them and they're not giving us a gimmicky season, which for me personally, I wouldn't have enjoyed it if it was a really gimmicky season. I want to see them do these challenges. And I want to see who of these old school people still has it. And there's a few of them that have really put their hand up, showing that they still can do well in these types of challenges.
Well, one thing I did like about old school, the challenge, like when it was real world versus road rules, it was a little bit more backyard. It was a little bit more like it wasn't as many special effects and all that stuff. So yes, it's interesting to see these old school people in a new school environment. But I do like, they're digging for keys or they're having, a rope on their back and it's just a tug of war. Like there was something about the simplicity about the old school challenge that I also really enjoyed. So I wouldn't have minded if it was also a look back a little bit at where the challenge came from in terms of how they created the challenges for them in the dailies.
Yeah. Now, we do have here the team that nobody thought was going to actually win this thing, the underdog team. They do end up winning this, which puts, we find out Liturian in trouble because it is a men's day. And because of this, it now gives the safety to Gisela, and she can save someone moving forward. Now, especially this early in the season, I feel like it would have been a wrong move for her to go against the whole house to save someone. Do we think that the safety nomination is something that's going to come into play in the later part of the season, or do you think people in general, because these guys know each other so well, they'll probably sort of go by a consensus vote throughout the whole game?
Hmm.
Are you
You're referring to the lifesaver?
The lifesaver, that's the one. Yep.
Well, you see, and this is where all the social connections are going to come in, because say if it's like Cyrus is down there and then Beth has the choice, she'll save him, and vice versa, obviously. So I think it's going to play a part, because I feel like there's so many different relationships in the house that this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I think that they will choose to use it. There's a lot of more strategic players in this season, and so I can see that, like, oh no, it's good for me to save this person, because if I'm in the same situation and they have the power, they're going to save me. And so I think they're going to use it to build stronger bonds, stronger alliances with people. I don't think that Gisela cares about Ace being in the house and in the game, because she doesn't think that he would put his game on the line for her. So there was no real use in her saving him. I was curious, but I don't think that it's the case, as to whether or not they'd be able to keep it and use it later down the road. Like, that would be really interesting. Yeah. It's like, hey, do you want to use your lifesaver now or later? But I do think it's going to be week by week. Somebody's going to have that power. But I think it will be used a lot more often later down the road.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great idea. Like, if you had, like, do you want to use it or bank it? But the problem is that if you get a lot of players banking it and it comes to the end of the season, then you might get like an advantage get in with too many people being able to save different people. So you might want to make it something like you could bank it for 1 week or something like that, so it's not too overpowering. And then at some stage in the game, you might need to remove it, because it would be pretty cool if you could bank it for yourself and save yourself, for instance, if you needed to go down there. And obviously you get safety when it's a male, and you don't get safety when it's a female, because that could have just brought a different dynamic to the game and a different level of strategy required for the season. Now we go back to the house and we see Cyrus and Laterian talking to each other here. Laterian says that he wants to go up against Ace, and the reason that he wants to go against Ace is because he's the person that he doesn't really know. He's only known him for 24 hours, so it seems like a pretty sound reason for wanting Ace to go down there in the elimination. And I feel like Tech probably is the biggest winner out of this episode, because if Tech didn't win it, maybe he would have been looked at as a weaker person to actually take on in the elimination round or the arena.
Yeah, Tech might have been stamping his ticket out of Argentina had on the losing end.
Well, no, I don't want Tech to go anywhere. He's really entertaining still. Like, I watched all of his seasons, like both of his seasons, and I felt like he was on more, but I can't believe that he literally has not been on the show in 21 years. I was like, I do feel like it was just yesterday seeing him and Ruthie. So I'm happy that he's still here. He has a chance to maybe find one of these challenges. It might be suiting to his strengths. And so, yeah, I want another week with Tech.
Yeah, listen, he's in my team, so I definitely don't want to lose Tech this early on in the draft as well. No, keep him there the whole time. And he's got great confessionals as well throughout this whole episode. And like I said, he does bring the dance moves to the dance floor, so we definitely want to see more of that. Now, we do also see here that at the nomination, Cyrus speaks up here for his boy Laterian, and he says that Ace is the person that we should vote for. Laterian wants Ace to go into the arena or the elimination, and Ace throughout this keeps calling everybody monsters, and he can't believe that they're doing this to him. And I feel like just the wrong strategy being used here, and probably Ace, like we said throughout this episode, he probably just didn't connect as well with the rest of the cast. He doesn't seem to have that many close connections. I don't know who, like definitely him and Mark Long would have had a pretty close connection for Mark to be able to get him on there, but I don't really know who else would have had him. Arissa tried to sort of stand up for him and say that she doesn't want to vote for him, but he's kind of in with Beth obviously there, but outside of that he doesn't have options on this group here, and it looks like a pretty clear and dry case that he's going to go down.
And I also think this is like the OGs setting the tone. I'd said that I think that things will change up depending on who's in power or who's going down, for sure, and with the lifesaver. But it's kind of like, I think it was Johnny that said, hey, we promised them that we would have their back if they were going to take the position of being the captain. And so I feel like that's setting the tone of like, okay, if somebody's going to step up and we say that we're going to honor what they want, we will give them what they want. And I think that it's actually just it's creating the conditions for how a lot of the challenges might go down, and other deliberations in the future might go down as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's on the ace front, kind of a little bit. I think I pointed this out on the fantasy cast that we did too, or fantasy draft, that they like him, but they don't like him that much to where they want to keep him. I just think that they viewed him as kind of like easy pickings. Like I just think that they just kind of figured
Just for those that don't know.
they could just have their way with him a little bit. And I feel like had he come back and had been in a similar situation, I feel like, and this is the type of game, like, you kind of pick one person, you keep picking that person because you don't want to, like, ruffle feathers with multiple different people. I feel like had Ace come back, I feel like he would have just been repeatedly kept being thrown in just to, not ruffle the feathers of any other people.
Wait, so does he get Arissa as in exchange for Ace?
Let's have a quick look here at because we've brought it up quite a few times. So we do have Ace that's in Mike's group, and he is obviously out in this episode, which means Arissa will become the automatic person that will go into his team there. So I feel like I'm justified in what I said in that fantasy draft about Ace looking very defeated in that trailer, and obviously that was the fact that he was going to be out very early on. But I do know, Mike, you said that he looked really sad throughout all of his cast photos as well, and now we know why. I think out of this last ring or this last group of people that we selected, Chantel, you definitely got the best pick, and Gisela, I feel like she probably just off the base of this first episode, we could have picked her a lot higher because we were comparing her to someone like Anissa, but she had a very strong showing, probably a stronger showing than Anissa in this first episode, I would say.
100% stronger showing. I think people are calling her like Mama Bear coming out. I think that she is playing for something different. Before she's playing for the fun and for the scooter, and now she's playing for her family and her, her own legacy in her real life. And so I think that the motivation is completely different. 500,000 can change your life and your family's life completely. And so I think that the hunger is completely different and the drive is completely different. People do crazy things for their family. And so I think that she is doing something crazy for her family right now. And so I'm really happy to be seeing this side of her because it just shows how powerful and amazing people can be if they put their mind to it. And it was an awesome showing. And I'm so happy that I didn't, consider, I was obviously teetering between her and Ace as like my two picks. And for some reason, I wanted her on my team. I wanted to see what she was going to do. And so I'm really happy that I went with my gut there. Went with the gut. Yes.
Well done. And it also shows you that you don't necessarily have to be defined by your past, which can be a great sort of premise for a lot of these other players that haven't had great seasons in the past who are coming back here. And we might see a completely under the cover winner at the end of the season. Who knows? Like I'm keeping hopes out there that that we may, like, who knows? Maybe we didn't even select one of our winner picks in our first picks for the male or the females. That would be a surprise for a lot of us if someone completely different wins the season. Now, we do have Ace here ultimately he's gonna get voted in, and they've got a party in the house after that. It's a 90s themed party, and they say that only people over 40 are allowed in the party, but there's a few people in the house that are not 40 here, which I feel like they may have forgotten about them.
I love that party. It's like it actually looked fun, and that's actually what the challenge was like before. I think that this party outdoes the Ice Dome parties this season on Double Agents. Like they look like they're having a good time. The music is a lot better. Yeah, I was here for the party, but maybe not for the morning after.
Well, the good thing about having people in this party that can actually drink because they're not athletes is you're going to have a lot more fun with people probably getting drunk, because in the actual challenge, you've got that many athletes now in there. I bet you a lot of them are just having Diet Coke instead of actually having drinks when they go into the Ice Dome.
Yeah, I I love that they had this party, honestly, because this is kind of what I've been seeing from fans and what they kind of are missing, because it just doesn't feel like they're having that much fun on the current show anymore. I just think that it's been a lot of intense a little bit of dim and dark, a little bit of I think fans like and enjoy seeing the cast enjoying their experience, and it makes for a much more comfortable watching experience, is what I think. And I think that those parties go hand in hand with that.
Absolutely. And for Total Madness, I just remember being like, of course I'm gonna watch, but like, where's the drunk hot tub scenes we're always talking about? Like, what happened to all the makeouts? Like, where did all that go? Like, why are they stuck in a bunker? Why is it so serious? Like, yeah, it's serious explosions, blah blah blah. It's a lot of money on the line. I get it, but like, yeah, I want the sloppy makeouts. I want the noodle fight. The noodle fight can stay in there for sure. But, I just want more opportunities for stuff like that to happen. And I know it was also pandemic and things are a little bit different, so they can't really go out and be out with people. But we're also saying we're missing having them go on the bus. They were always used to take a bus to the nightclub, and, whatever happens on the bus on the way back, usually was so much drama, whether it's like a hand job or it's like someone throwing pasta out of a window. Like, something was happening on the bus ride home from the club. So I was happy to see this for that reason as well. Give us some of that salacious trash that we love.
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing that sort of stood out with this was the fact that obviously they couldn't leave the house because of the pandemic and everything like that. It would have been great to see them actually mingle in a club somewhere in Argentina, wherever they were in Argentina. And one of the things I think that maybe in recent seasons has prevented us from seeing a lot more of the sloppiness, the makeout sessions and all this kind of stuff is that we do have a lot of people, even in the current challenge season, that are getting, like, the average age is getting older and older on the show. So, back in the day it was 20-year-olds, some 18-year-olds on there that still were single, they were still ready to mingle and all that kind of stuff. But now you do have people that are a lot more in serious relationships. You've got people with kids. So that does change it a little bit. But it was great to see them have some fun here, bring out the 90s theme. You see Ace coming in his clothes and he looks like, he's somewhere from medieval, and he said he thought it was an 1890s theme, which I laughed at. That was pretty cool of him because he was a little bit sour about the fact that he was getting voted in, and it looked like he might not want to go out there and have fun, but he does go out. And even in this party, I noted down once again, Nehemiah is seen as mingling with a lot of different people in the party, talking to different people. He's working really hard here in the earlier game. And I do wonder if people are going to look at some of these younger players in this season, like a Nehemiah, who's only like 35 years old, as a bit of a threat. Like, if I was an older player coming into this, I would want to get rid of some of these younger guys and let them take each other out, like put a Nehemiah against the Derek. Don't do it, please. I want to put it in the universe because they're both my players. But I would definitely want to do something like that and try and work them out so there's no younger players that are quite athletic in the finals running against me if it's an endurance challenge.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's if I was playing the game, I'd make that move 100%. I would set that up immediately. I would probably round all the numbers, and we're making that happen. But no, I think, and honestly, coming out of this episode, and I think that I just feel like I was wanting more Nehemiah. Like, something about him on this episode, I just really like the vibe of him just all around.
Same.
And I was left wanting more, and I think that there's still ways to go, but I would really think he would be a welcome addition to the actual challenge.
I was going to bring up one of the disappointing things for me so far because I've started seeing rumored cast lists coming out for season 37 of the challenge, and Nehemiah's name is not on that rumored cast list at all. And I don't know if that's going to be true or not. I would love to see him there as well. But the two players I did see on that list who are currently playing in this season is Derek and Darrell. Those are the two players that are currently rumored to be on that list. I don't know if any of you guys have had a sneaky look as well.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I mean, I know that from the casting, list from 36, we had kind of people just pop up from out of nowhere who weren't on the list last second. Like, I know Teresa and Darrell. Darrell was on it, I believe, but Teresa came from out of nowhere. Lolo Jones. So, those things, most of the time they're usually correct, but then we could see someone come out of nowhere a little bit at the last second. So I definitely feel like, with Nehemiah being on this, he's at least on the radar in some capacity. I don't know how far or high up on the list he is, because you got to remember now with how they're pulling, there's probably like the list goes on, so you don't know where he's falling on it. But I definitely feel like at the very least he's deserving of like an availability call at the minimum.
Well, if he's going to hook up with Jimmy, then obviously, he's giving Chantal and the people what they want. So let's bring him back.
The next this season.
Also, I heard that they're going to be going into quarantine the week of April 12th. So that's like less than 2 weeks away. So I think that we'll probably get some for sure names going in there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were waiting to see if some of these OGs are going to get some traction to be like, hey, like, okay, let me pull some of these old school fans into the new show. I do feel like they're going to try to be doing some back and forth and like lift up the fandom for both of the shows. So that could be why we aren't hearing about Nehemiah yet. Maybe they didn't know that he was going to be such a standout, and so maybe they're like, oh, okay, great, okay, so we can still ask him, and like, so I think they still have some time to ask some of these people to come on to the season 37.
Yeah, and I agree. I just want to say, Mike, I agree. Nehemiah's giving me really good vibes early in the season. I feel like he's going to be a big player. And also, they weren't focusing on her. They focused on him just the right amount of time, I feel like, in this episode with the confessionals and things like that. Because sometimes when you give someone too many confessionals too early on, it could be because they're going to be there for a very short period of time. But I don't feel like that's going to be the case with him. Now, the morning after party has got a really funny scene as well with Gisela coming out and having made herself some breakfast. We see Kellyanne on the side doing her yoga really early in the morning and getting the fitness routines going. I did have a sneaky listen, Mike, to your podcast with Kellyanne. So for those who haven't seen it, definitely go check out the Mike Lewis podcast. And he's done some interviews with some of the players that are currently in the season. And I noticed that she said that she doesn't drink anymore. And probably she didn't drink the night before. That's why she's out there bright and early to be able to go do the workouts. But it's not the case for some of the others that are struggling. Like Gisela said, she can't party like she used to when she was in her 20s. She's feeling a bit rough. But there's a really funny scene here with Cyrus trying to get her to make him some breakfast or get some of her breakfast as well. And she's just saying, nope, you can get your own or something like that, which I thought was really funny and playful. And it's more Cyrus just talking to Laterian here, telling him to get his head in the game and get ready for this elimination that he's going to go into.
Yeah, no, I like seeing the morning after scenes. It's just a little bit more real, like I'm sure that there's people still hungover on the regular challenge, but they don't really show that anymore. So they are kind of painting the story of these, old timers, like, oh, they don't still got it, but they're going to show that they still got it. I think that they're just like kind of pushing them down so we can see them rise up. I definitely think these are very strategically placed scenes about these competitors.
Yeah, I mean, these are people that are way past that kind of demographic, so I think it's kind of funny and cool to kind of show that morning after clip.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that Yes has not been on any of these seasons for 18 years. That's an insanely long time. And we didn't touch much on him up until this point, but he's another person who I just got really good vibes from throughout this whole episode. He seems really chill. He seems like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. He's an architect, I believe. He's got a family now as well. And I just feel like he's going to be cool under pressure. And he does have a little bit of a scene here where he says that, with Ace and LT hitting each other and with Ace hitting the ground, he got goosebumps when they were down in the ring because they were sort of going up against each other. And one of the really funny things here when we move into the elimination is the fact that a lot of people didn't even know what a pole wrestle was. Like you got Laterian and Ace down there and they didn't know what the pole wrestle was. So we get like flashbacks of previous seasons and some of the best pole wrestling sort of matchups that we've had up until this point.
Well, it reminds me of what Anissa was saying in Double Agents. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. Was like, hey, I did the first pole wrestling. I did the first hall brawl, and so that was probably like 15 years ago. And so some of these players hadn't played, since then. So yeah, it's nice to know that they're getting to have a little bit of a taste of some of the standards of what's like we expect from the challenge right now. And then we're also getting, the old school, like their flavor. So I like how they're mixing both worlds a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think it was the season before Ace's last season was when they first debuted pole wrestle. So, and I don't necessarily take it as Ace is the type of guy to go back and rewatch a season that he's not particularly on. So I'm sure he had like no clue. But you can definitely see the facial expression and body language of Letarian change the moment he found out exactly what the stipulations were. Because he actually, for his, as much flack as he's gotten in, the previous stint of his challenge career, he's never been in a situation where it's been like a headbanger. So, maybe now since he's gotten to see a headbanger, maybe these are some things that might cater to his strengths, which presumably are so. And he has pretty much now got the chance to build off of this episode and kind of change how people view him now and kind of like rewrite history more or less in a way.
I agree. And when you look at his previous elimination, he had one previous elimination, and that was against Elton, who he lost. So it's not like he's lost against the riffraff of the challenge. He lost against someone who is one of the best.
And like a climbing thing too, which we know Alton's track record when it comes to climbing.
Yeah, 100%. Now, sorry, you go ahead, Chantal.
No, I was just gonna say that like it was a bad loss though. I remember feeling it for him, being like, oh man, like that wasn't that must have hurt. So I think that he's gonna feel vindicated here a little bit, and I think that it'll give him a little bit of pep in his step, and maybe he's gonna want to play the game a little bit more. He's escaped going out first. Now he's won, and having that taste of winning an elimination is always really good for people to feel in order to A, stay out of there, and B, though, if they end up back down there again, they know what that feeling is like, and so it will be more possible for them to come out on top next time.
And I don't see them going back to Letarian anytime soon. Like, I feel like he's now proven his, he's gotten his stripes, like they like to say in the challenge. He's gone down there. He's won one. They're not going to go back to him next week unless he's like the person who maybe finishes last or stupidly enough puts his name up to be a captain again. He's done what he needed to do. So I feel like they're going to look away from him to other players for a little bit, and he might sneak past you in a couple of weeks. And everything that I've gotten from him at this point, the social interactions between him and Cyrus, there's a reason they're showing that to us as often as they are. I feel like those two will be there for quite a while still in the game, which is positive to see two of these OGs go really far, and I'm sure you'll be very happy with that, Chantal. Now, one of the other things I wanted to touch on here was the elimination arena itself. It looks really cool. It's like this Aztec architecture that they've got. It's quite a light theme. They've got the two waterfalls on both sides, and for me, it's just a fresh look on what we've seen in recent seasons. I've really liked it. It looks good.
Definitely very all-star-esque, I'll say that much.
Very glamour. Yeah.
Definitely looks good. And I also like, even where they're doing their deliberation, it's outside. Like, that hasn't been really, I can't remember if it has been like that before or not, but it seems familiar with them not being in just like, some room in a bunker. So I like that they're kind of using the outdoor or the space just in a way that looks a little bit more epic. And actually the deliberation area, it reminded me of Survivor a little bit, with like, just
tribal.
Yeah, it was more like a tribal council. So I definitely am enjoying how they're playing with the scenery and the arena and the deliberation scenes.
Yeah, it's got a very fresh look to it this season, which is what I like. Is you have to differentiate it slightly from the main brand as well in people's minds. Now, going into the actual challenge, we see Letarian and Ace go up against each other, and I felt really sorry for Ace here because he was just completely outmuscled on this challenge. Now, I'm someone that's done martial arts for a long time in my life, so I know a little bit about body positioning. And when you look at the body positioning for them going into this pole wrestle, you've actually got Letarian with his feet quite wide apart, and he kind of goes into like a half squat when he goes to the power pull. But you've got Ace standing straight up with both his feet next to each other, so he's got absolutely no sense. It doesn't look like he's ever done anything physical in his life. Letarian, to me, looked like he knew what he was doing, and Ace, he went to the ground, especially on that second one. He went to the ground very early on, but he never tried to get back up on his feet, which made it extremely easy because he didn't put his body weight into the actual pole, going down, trying to force it out of Letarian's grip. It made it very easy for Letarian, who's clearly a strong guy, to just lift him up and to sledgehammer him into the ground pounding every single time, to the point where one of the girls asked Anissa, I think it was Kendall, asked Anissa, is this how tough and brutal it normally is? And Anissa said, thinks to herself, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing to you. So she's got a really good one-liner here. She had a couple within this episode, but just again, it shows you that these guys are a little bit unprepared for how physical this specific elimination and challenge is going to be.
I definitely felt like, and I know that Latarian's body position was obviously way better than Ace's. However, I honestly thought that both of them didn't have maybe the ideal strategy, because for me, if I was in a pole wrestle, I think the first thing I would like to do is just take it to the ground and just kind of lay on it with my stomach, and gain the control and position from there. I feel like if Latarian tried that against someone of maybe stiffer competition, that might have not worked out as well, because you get someone, say like a Darrell per se. I don't necessarily see that working in Latarian's favor if he goes with a strategy like that. I feel like in a pole wrestle situation, I feel like that's a type of situation where you want to kind of gain control of it and kind of get on the ground with it and use your body to kind of leverage the pole a little bit. And I feel like both of them kind of weren't going with the right strategy here. But I mean,
their hand position, the position of their hands on the pole were very strange to me, because you could see both of them holding on to both ends, opposed to like alternating in between each other, which is, I think, what made it look very different. Because when you look at Darrell or you look at Derek or someone like that who knows what they're doing, actually holding the pole, they do alternate their hands in between the middle of the pole and the side of the pole so that they can get their body behind it to actually take it down to the ground. But yeah, you're right. It did look a little bit off. I think Latarian was lucky that he could out-muscle Ace in this case.
But it also, to me, like, it was really, I was making a lot of facial expressions watching it because it looked quite painful to be Ace in that scenario. But it felt to me as though Ace kind of gave up. Like, he went to the ground and he was just trying to just hold on to the pole, as opposed to getting the pole away from his opponent. And so I don't think that his strategy in general was a winning strategy by just defending himself. Like, he needed to be trying to get it out of his hands. And so I think that if that was his intention, as opposed to like holding on to it, what he might have had a better strategy as to how he's going to do that. Because like, I don't think that his intention was to get the pole out of his hands.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off what you just said, he actually, because I looked at his Instagram, him in his comment section, he said that he actually broke a couple ribs from that elimination. Wow. So,
oh my God, whoa!
I didn't see that, but yeah.
Some other people were saying that they think that pole wrestling was set up by production because they wanted to give Latarian the best chance to win, and so they made that be the elimination in the arena.
Well, it's an easy one to set up quickly if you need to, because there's not that much required. You only need a pole and a ring to be able to do it. One of the things I wanted to touch on is that if you're, like, again, sort of going back to, like, I used to compete in karate quite a lot. If you're in an arena and you're fighting against someone else and you know they're going to take off your head, like, this is quite a physical thing. Adrenaline comes into play here. And if you're not someone that's used to being down there and doing these things, you do go in flight or flight mode. And I feel like Ace probably, like you said, Chantal, went into flight mode and just try to hang in there or survive, but he wasn't thinking clearly. That's why it's always interesting when you see someone like, for instance, a Josh in the current season go down there and he makes a bit of a buffoon of himself, because clearly he doesn't deal well with adrenaline when he goes into these arena type of scenarios, where someone like a Jordan Wisely, for instance, is always really good in it because he stays calm, he keeps his adrenaline under control, and he can think about what he needs to do strategically in those specific challenges. So I feel like maybe Latarian was probably nervous, having only been in one elimination before and having lost that, so that would have played on his mind. And then someone like an Ace who's been in two but had lost two before this season, he probably went in there probably not used to that kind of scenario as well, and that's probably why we didn't get the best strategy in it. Now, I did have a quick look at the trailer for the next episode, or for the rest of the season, I should say, and we get a lot more drama coming up here in the next episodes. We've got Katie saying, that was 16 years ago, Trishelle. And we see that there's going to be some drama there. Katie doesn't look like she might stay so calm in that scenario. And we've got a lot of drama.
About. So I was doing a little bit of research, and Trishelle was having an interview, I think it was on Entertainment Tonight or some sort of show like that. And she talked about how Katie is actually one of her really good friends. They've lived together. She was in her wedding party, I believe. And so like they know each other really well. So I think, and she mentioned also that this was the first time she was going to be seeing Anissa in person since their fight, the last season that she was on. So she has apparently apologized, maybe through social media or email or whatnot, but this was the first time that she was going to be speaking face-to-face with Anissa. So I actually think that Katie is talking to Trishelle about maybe her wanting to talk to Anissa about it, or maybe Anissa didn't give the right reaction or a reaction that she resonated with, like after having a conversation. But I think it's about that. I don't think it's about them. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and we also see here a little bit about Anissa and Darrell look like they're going to get into it. And Anissa saying, you've known me since I've been 18 or something like that. So they've known each other their whole life, and they've just now played a season together. So at some point, it looks like Darrell might have to go against Anissa and throw her down there. But it looks like there's a lot of drama coming up for these future episodes, which makes me very excited because I felt like this first episode was very kumbaya, and everybody was just kind of doing what the majority wanted to be done in the end here. Now, going back to our picks here on the actual draft, how are we feeling, guys? Are we still pretty confident that the top picks that we've got here are the guys to watch out for? Who are you guys the most high on after this first episode, and who do you think maybe underperformed from what we thought on this list in our teams? Chantal, I'd go with you first. Who do you think you're pretty happy with here so far, and who do you think maybe you got a bit of a dud in your team there?
Well, definitely Gisela obviously impressed all of us. Standout MVP of the episode. If I'm just looking at my team, I'm worried about Kendall being out of her league here. She says that thing to Anissa about like, oh my God, like, is it always this bad? And I'm wondering if we couldn't tell who was the blonde person that you were suggesting is going to quit.
It's not Trishelle, by the way. It's not Trishelle, because I saw her on the she was actually outside of the arena when TJ did it this time, so we saw a different angle. So good pick there for Mike, because that's one of the reasons I didn't go for Trishelle from the start. It might be one of the other blonde ladies.
So then I'm worried that it's actually Kendall being out of her league here. She hasn't had obviously a lot of challenge experience, just the one season, and she's 40. So I'm worried that it's her. And so she would be right now who I'd be on my team, who I'd be most worried about being the quitter and maybe not surviving too long in the game.
It was kind of a quiet episode for my team a little bit. I know Ace went home, but aside of that, it was pretty mellow for my team as far as episode 1 goes. I feel like
Yes is your pick. I feel like Yes is your pick on that team that stood out the most and probably did better than what most of us would have expected. I didn't he was your second last pick, right? So yeah. I didn't expect him to be as prominent in this episode as he was.
Yeah, I was kind of I wouldn't say let down, but a little bit like disappointed and kind of like Darrell and Anissa a little bit. I feel like maybe they didn't make as big of a kind of splash. You ever see like out on the schoolyard, there's like the lead, kids, if you're playing kickball, like they show up and you like who asserts like kind of like that alpha kind of who's the alpha. And I feel like I expected Darrell and Anissa to kind of be like the big kids on the block because of obviously their current presence still on Double Agents. And I don't know, I just didn't really get that vibe. Like they didn't really stand out. I thought like they would stand out here, and they kind of just faded into the pack a little bit. They kind of came back down to earth a little bit, and didn't really separate from anybody. So that was a little bit discouraging. And I know Ruthie was one of the only 2 cast members to not even get a confessional on episode 1. Her and John A were the only 2 that didn't get a confessional.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I think with my team, I I was the most impressed. I actually feel very comfortable with my team at this stage. Low key, I'm feeling excited about the team that I've chosen, which is a good thing. I know that quite a few of them didn't get too much airtime this specific episode. I do think Derek's going to be a beast this season, so I still feel very confident about having him as my first pick. You know, he's promoting the hell out of this season as well on Instagram and on Twitter and stuff like that. So I don't think he would have done that if he was one of the first people out this season. But Nehemiah is probably the person that, you know, he kind of pushed Derek for me on that first pick slot for the guys. I was very impressed with this first episode. He's done everything, like we mentioned earlier, to be socially in with a lot of people. He looks physically fit, like Mike said, probably in even better shape than what we saw him last time he played in the show. And the person that I'm probably the most worried about in this group is Tech. I love Tech. I think that, you know, he's great at the confessionals. He's a great energy to have in the cast. So I hope he stays for a while. I'm really happy I've got him there, but I feel like physically he's out of his league here, and I think that the guys are going to want to take a shot at him sooner rather than later if they get an opportunity.
So are you happy though, Mike, that you at least get to still have a full team with your swap out?
Yeah, it's definitely bittersweet. I lose my favorite cast member, Ace, on episode 1.
Now, Chantel, is there anything we missed on the Twitter front for this week? Did you see anything else there? I feel like I checked Instagram. It was extremely quiet, and it seems like everybody's playing their cards very close to their chest at this stage, and they're not giving too much away for the season.
Not that I've seen. So I'm going to be a little bit more, fine tooth comb next week if they still do their live tweeting with the episode. I didn't end up getting to watch it at the same time, so I didn't want to get spoiled by following with their tweets. So next week, though, I'll watch it at the same time. I believe they're watching at 8 Eastern. I'll watch it with them, and then I'll kind of follow through with their tweets and see if I can get any extra insider information there. But definitely the other thing that I saw was just, Trishelle talking on Entertainment Tonight about her challenge experience. And the one thing, is that they said to her, at the beginning, come in as something that you'd wear if you're going out for a dinner party or going out for dinner. And so she kind of came in that sequin dress, and she kind of was looking a little bit fancier. And then she sees other people kind of in sweatpants or sneakers and a little bit more cash. So she kind of got duped a little bit by the producers there by making her look like she wasn't coming prepared for the challenge. So that's a little insider info.
Mike, any final thoughts from your end?
No, I definitely we're off to a good foot with the first episode. I definitely feel though like every first episode of every season, I feel like kind of sets the tone, sets the bar high, and now we have to see if this is something that is sustainable, essentially, because I feel like with the last two main season episodes kind of got us a little excited and then maybe wasn't as sustainable. So I'm interested to see here with this All-Star season now, seeing as how it's being perceived by fans. Most are giving this a 5-star or past 5 stars. I've seen people say 11 out of 10 as a rating for this episode. So the bar is definitely set high, and I'm interested to see if they can sustain this now.
I'm cautiously optimistic. Call me an internal optimist. And, I'm quite new to this, so I can't be disappointed by any of these All-Stars coming back and not living up to the legacy. So that's not going to hurt me. But I'm optimistic because I feel like we haven't seen the best yet in the type of challenges that we're going to see. And I also am optimistic because I feel like in this episode, everybody was playing a lot of kumbaya. There's a lot of friendships here, but we know some of these people are going to have to cut each other as the season goes on. And I think that's going to create some drama, which is what we would all love to see moving forward. Now, everybody that watched this live, thank you very much. If you're listening to this after the live show, we thank you very much. We will be back to do this again next week on Friday, the day after it goes live on Paramount Plus. And we will stick to the same time at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to do these episode recaps. So we look forward to seeing you there. Again, if you do like this content, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you want to be alerted to any videos that we do. We do a lot of content here on Reality Plus that is reality related. We've got our lovely host for the block, Chantel. She does all our Big Brother Canada coverage. So if you do check out any of the Big Brother Canada stuff, she's live every day after the episode to talk about that. We've got our Survivor buffs. I know it's not actually live the season at the moment, but they're doing a ton of content at the moment in regards to like future themes that we may want to see, how certain players did, and if they'll be back. I am also the host for our Survivor Global coverage. So if you do have the ability to watch Australian Survivor and Survivor South Africa, definitely check that out as well. There's a lot of reality content coming your way, and we're continuing to grow this team, and we'll have plenty more coming in the future. Chantel, Mike, thank you as always. It's been great talking to you guys.
Thank you. It was a blast.